In at 10 to Rockstar Row. During the so-called interrogation and torture scene in Parts and Service, or at least that's what people are calling it, based on the titles of videos on YouTube, Vanessa questions Freddy about Gregory and accuses Freddy of helping us, which I mean is true, but she shouldn't even have to accuse him. More on that later. After telling him that she's gonna leave him down there until he can get put on a new endo, which doesn't really make sense if his coding is the issue and not the endoskeleton itself, why would she leave to Rockstar Row through Roxy's lift? Why? When she could have easily just come our way and head into the main atrium. That's where Gregory is for the majority of the game, and that's where all the animatronics are patrolling and have been spotting him. It would make more sense to go there than to Rockstar Row, where he was seen maybe twice at this point. Like, I don't know, it seems weird to me. I don't understand. Maybe like the whole logic behind this is that since all the animatronics are out in the atrium, she doesn't need to be there, or maybe she needs to be somewhere where she can get to her Vanny suit quickly, but I don't know. Even if it is Vanessa taking over and not like glitch trap at this point, I still don't get why she wouldn't just go to the atrium. In at 9, Bag of Rocks. Before Vanessa leaves Freddy in Parts and Service, okay, she says that it's so that his casing can be put on a new endo after they probably have someone on the clock who can do it normally. But then after that, she doesn't seem to be suspicious that he's walking around in front of her maybe within like 3 minutes. What? Who would have repaired him if not for, like, if it wasn't Gregory? There's literally no other human in the Pizzaplex, or at least that's alive at this point, and you know, Freddy can't really do it himself. The whole cylinder thing is to protect humans. There are no staff bots in this section, and the only reason that you had to leave him was because nobody else was working. Hello? You there, McFly? Like, why would Vanessa be so chill about Freddy just like walking around in front of her? She literally left him with his head removed, and now she's like, what, assuming that he somehow did it himself, which is literally impossible as he was strapped down. Even if he had done it himself, why wouldn't she see him and then confine him to his room, especially after just accusing him of helping to protect Gregory? Okay, it's something that confuses me like so much, and I found it weird in my first playthrough, so I figured that if we got close to Vanessa, she would pull us out of Freddy, but like, I walked up to her to test it and nothing. She gave absolutely zero shits. Like, why? She's dumber than a bag of rocks at this point. It would have been so easy just to make like that little modification to her code for at least this part of the game, like making her a little bit more dangerous if she saw Freddy, but no, they didn't. In at 8, Princess Quest. The whole reason Princess Quest is a thing in this game was to lock Vanessa away in her brain and prevent her from regaining full control over her body. So why did William create or allow for the creation of a fail-safe in this system that allows her to escape? I mean, like, sure, they didn't expect a kid to come along and figure it out maybe, but first of all, it's an arcade machine, of course I'm gonna goddamn play it, but also given the track record of literally all of your plans, you'd think that Afton would have smartened up after like 40 years at the very least, but he doesn't, okay? It's like having a self-destruct button on the bomb that you plan to use to blow up Gotham City, okay? Or like it's like, I don't get it. It's like if the Joker had a purify water supply button just on him or something, okay? It's dumb. If you want something to work, why give it a way to fail? Or maybe that's just my brain and my perfectionism talking, but again, it's one of the dumbest things that Afton has actually ever done in the series. Like, canonically it doesn't backfire somehow, but that's aside the point. Like, but seriously, why would you have a way to undo your evil plans? A 4-year-old can do this. The fact that this wasn't the canon ending is actually just insane how that didn't happen. Just bury the third machine, at least. God damn. Like, if that's the intention behind it, just bury it and leave it, okay? Fill it with concrete and leave it. Jeez. And at 7, Gregory, sus. The meme of Gregory needing to vent when he's locked in one of the security rooms is certainly entertaining, but I think that the gameplay of this section is one of the highlights of the game. The fact that you need to defend these doors from Roxy and Monty while also escorting Freddy through the various doors so that he can get to the vent beneath you is interesting, and it can take a while to realize that's what you're actually supposed to be doing with Freddy. Since for a period of time, I was just yelling at my screen asking where Freddy was. But once I got the hang of pressing the buttons on the interior monitors when Freddy says that he's there, I was able to do it pretty swiftly. And if you know about this from the start, you probably don't really need to defend the other doors, since you can seemingly get Freddy through all the doors and under the vent before one of the 4 doors fails. And at 6, Pizza Bot. One of the most interesting things to me was the Pizza Bot mini game, when you choose to go to the bottom of the Pizzaplex through the vent and try to escape the Pizzaplex that way instead of going through L chips and the prize counter. Because at that point, you end up getting into a security office where Chica is outside the only working door. So you have to make a pizza using one of the pizza chef bots to lure her away from the door. And this is actually a really cool look into the Fazbear Kitchen and how it operates now, with service bots kind of taking up positions of people because, you know, they can be unpaid. But I'm also guessing that they're more reliable not to kill people than, you know, humans. The funniest part about this to me was when I got stuck in the sauce machine and I was like, oh no, Step Chica. That's a story for another day. The fact that they dispense all the parts of the pizza onto the pizza through basically modified soda ice machines is also an interesting idea, because, you know, they're robots and they can't really make it by hand. I wonder how realistic that would be. And at 5, Music Man Chase. The Music Man Chase scene and the whole section that came before it with having to reboot the West Arcade is actually one of the coolest sections in the entire series. Not only does it provide the second Princess Quest arcade machine, but we also get to run through the hall with an obstacle course that's being made right in front of us. There are various different paths that you can choose as well, as long as you're paying attention. At one point you can jump over a fallen shelf or run to the left and go around it, although that usually takes a bit longer, and I actually managed to do this on my first try. I was so far ahead that some of the obstacles didn't even fall in front of me and I didn't realize that's what this section was. But somehow Music Man still ended up catching me right before I got into the security office, which made me absolutely furious. The complete BS of that moment aside, the next time I tried it, I ended up getting it right, so I think it's safe to say that the Music Man Chase is pretty damn cool. And I mean like the giant Music Man spider, or DJ Music Man if you're lame, not like the tiny Music Man when he chases you in the vents. And at 4, boss battles. While most boss battles weren't actually boss battles, with the exception of Monty, who felt pretty boss-like, the concepts of dismantling these animatronics was actually very interesting. Now, I do wish that these animatronics were actually decommissioned when we destroyed them, since it would make the post-game gift collection a lot easier, especially when you know you can't save. But the fact that they're somehow able to get back from the various instances that we left them in is pretty concerning. Like, how does Chica get back from being trapped underground when we can hardly make it across those boards? And how is Roxy able to make her way back to the main area after we take her eyes and she's blind? How is Monty able to crawl back from the depths of hell after we destroy him? I wish that they had actually been taken off of the board, but I get why they weren't. However, the actual ability to have animatronic boss battles is cool. And now I expect the next FNAF game to contain like Dark Souls style combat because of this. Getting close to the end, and at number 3, Destruction. And isn't it convenient that there is a way to break every other animatronic that isn't Freddy? Okay, that leaves the animatronic broken in such a way that we can remove whatever aspect we actually needed to upgrade Freddy? Hell yeah it is. It's so convenient, in fact, that there is somehow a way to break them that just works perfectly for their personality, and the perfect amount of the animatronics as well. That works the first time. And even with Chica, okay, we push her into a goddamn trash compactor and somehow don't get crushed ourselves despite her grabbing onto us and pulling us with her. We only get pulled down into another area of the Pizzaplex that we can still get back to the Pizzaplex through, and, you know, we weren't pulled into a thing that crushed our skulls. So yeah, needless to say that looking at this logically, it makes absolutely zero sense that any of this actually happened. Okay, we didn't even need to crush the animatronics, and instead we could have just chilled in Freddy's room until 6 AM when the doors opened. Penultimately, and at number 2, staying until 6. Speaking of which, Glamrock Freddy straight up encourages Gregory to risk his life in order to get out of the Pizzaplex, when in all honesty, the safest thing to do would have just been to keep him in your stomach or in your green room until 6 AM, especially after the door closes and he was definitely stuck, which just, it makes no sense whatsoever if Freddy is really meant to be protecting Gregory. There was no need for the whole daycare secret escape hatch thing. You could have just gone back the way you came and everything would have been fine. You wouldn't have been suspicious, since you would have at least appeared to be like you listened to Vanessa after you saw her in the healing area and went actually back to your room, and then Gregory would have been safe, especially after you knew that there was some crazy bunny running around the pizza place looking to slaughter him. So yeah, if Glamrock Freddy is like supposed to be protecting him, he did a horrible job at protecting this kid. Okay, I don't understand. You can think of all the excuses you want for him, but if Gregory had just waited in Freddy's green room, everything would have been fine. That's it. That's period. And finally, in at number 1, probable betrayal. I know that nobody wants to believe me on this, okay? We all want to hold out hope that finally one of the animatronics is going to be good and trying to help us, but Glamrock Freddy, after everything on this list, is almost certainly evil and just waiting for the perfect moment to strike. We've made a whole video about that, okay? And now, honestly, this one is kind of about that too. This guy makes some hella sketchy choices throughout our entire time at the Pizzaplex and only makes things worse for us. He takes us to get healed despite us saying no and having a limited time to leave, which ends up making us get locked inside the Pizzaplex. We also just sit in the booth and don't actually get healed, by the way, okay? He was unable to access the main Pizzaplex network despite having no reason to be disconnected, since at this point he wasn't suspected of helping us. And after Vanessa leaves Freddy without his head and parts in service, she sees him fully reassembled in less than 5 minutes and doesn't question it, like I said. Almost as if it was the plan the whole time. There's no way that he could have been put back together normally, and they just don't care, okay? The only way that this makes sense, any of this makes sense, is that if Freddy is secretly evil, and maybe even he doesn't know it. Maybe Afton is like in the back of his mind just like waiting to come forward. And at 9, spring locking. Along the same vein as the Bite of 83 tape scenario, a found footage video from one of the missing children's spirits' point of view would be absolutely insane. Just like Blair Witch, but make it FNAF, and that's in essence what the spring locking is. Plus, I would love to get these things in more angles, especially the moment where William starts suffering for like the next 30 plus years, okay? That would make me happy. This man has caused me so much suffering that I hope I get to see him suffer even more, okay? This wouldn't even be a scary VHS tape for me, okay? I'm sure the sound of the spring lock when it actually happens would spook me in the moment, but it would be quickly washed away by pleasure, because this goddamn mother hubber would be suffering right there with me. And not like in a 50 Shades of I want people in pain kind of way, but more like seeing him suffer would make me smile, okay? I'm not gonna like hit up Chica afterwards or anything like that, but I'm definitely not gonna lose any sleep over it, you know? And at 8, March of the Toreadors. If you're confused by this number, don't worry, I'm going to explain it real quick. March of the Toreadors is the name of the song that plays when you run out of power in FNAF. It's the song that plays leading up to Freddy's jump scare. It's also slowed down for the games, and it's a song released by Georges Bizet, released in 1875, and from my understanding, now in the public domain. And while that's interesting, I mainly use the name to illustrate the part of the game that I'm talking about. Having a tape or a Blair Witch style video of you running out of power would be absolutely terrifying, okay? I can imagine it. And if it was made in a realistic way instead of being something like FNAF VR or otherwise with just like some filters thrown on top of it, if it was actually real, it would be terrifying. Okay, that's the kind of thing that would give people nightmares, and actual nightmares, not like the ones that I have where I just wake up panicking, then I'm like, oh wait, no, like actually scary. And at 7, stealing security badges. Not only is Gregory just a really weird kid in general who wears Fazbear merch but also doesn't know that Chica loves pizza, he's also a thief. This guy steals so many things from the Pizzaplex, not even including all the little gift boxes that you can find around that are only optional. He also steals the security badges and ends up getting enough to have level 7 clearance as like a 4-year-old or a 6-year-old or however old he is. Okay, it's really unclear. Because like he can't ride the go-kart alone, and he can fit inside of Freddy's chest cavity, but he can also speak full sentences with proper grammar and stuff. Okay, I have no idea how old he actually is, but he is still able to gain level 7 clearance. But like, how are they so readily available for him to steal? And how is it that taking these badges always triggers some event that makes everything worse for him? Like, how are the security guards supposed to like use these badges if that's what happens every time they take it? Or, an even better question actually, how are these security badges laying around in special containers when security should just have their pass with their clearance level on it, like on their belt? Okay, I don't get it. Plus, how does gaining multiple level 1 passes end up adding up to a level 8 clearance? That's all, it's still all level 1, okay? I don't get it. It makes absolutely no sense, and it's almost as if they set it up for him to see how long it would play out or something, or how well he would do. I don't know. And at 6, fire. Okay, so During the true ending, otherwise known as the Afton ending or the Burn Trap ending or whatever the hell you want to yell at me for not calling it ending, we have to fend off Burn Trap's attempts to take control over Freddy by setting him on fire using what I'm guessing are the mechanisms that Henry uses to set the fire in FNAF 6, since this is the same location. However, it's incredibly convenient how we fall into the room that has all of this stuff in it, that it has the monitors set up connected to the cameras in the various rooms that Burn Trap enters exclusively, with buttons that light the fires in the corresponding room that like has the camera on the monitor. Yeah, despite it being far more convenient for Henry to light all of them at the same time, I don't get how this works. Plus, I mean, like, if you think about it, how are these still working? It's clearly been a while, and some of the comments report that the Pizzaplex has been open for at least 4 years, which I don't know if it is accurate because, I mean, it's the YouTube comments. But if it is, these cameras and old-ass computers are still working 4 years after being set on fire that was enough to ruin the building. Not to mention also falling into a sinkhole that would have had to open up underneath it since we have to travel down an elevator to actually get into this section of the pizza place. How is all of this still working after all of that? And if you say that it was Vanny, that even adds more questions, like why make sure the fire systems are working and then they're set to being separate buttons? Plus, why have the computer monitors set up to look at the right area? I don't get it. And how are these these computer monitors are literal dinosaurs. How did they work before the fire, let alone after it? This is the kind of thing that demonstrates the line between luck and intent, because there was no way this many things lined up for him, excluding plot armor, because we kind of need to ignore protagonist syndrome for this entire list. But still, if this was just happening, that would not happen. Never. No way. Halfway through into number 5, Ice Cold Captive. Gregory in the Faster Blast ending actually orders the robots to disassemble Vanny since she just ordered them to disassemble Freddy. But like, disassembling a robot and a human are two very different things. Okay, trust me, I would know. I'm surprised the robots even listened to him. Adding on to that, the fact that Gregory is willing to kill Vanny here, it's pretty messed up, especially given that like most people assume that he's 10 or 11, which doesn't really seem to make sense. Either way, you could argue that he doesn't know any better, but clearly he does. Okay, this kid is able to destroy all 3 animatronics without a moment's hesitation, use their upgrades on Freddy, he's willing to kill Vanny despite seemingly knowing her like we see in the best ending, and then he burns Burn Trap multiple times to make sure he doesn't take over Freddy. Okay, what the living hell is this kid doing? Like, how was he raised? How is he so nonchalant about literally doing all of this? This guy kills Vanny and then only gets emotional when he has to go talk to Freddy, who is destroyed. Dude, Vanny is bleeding out not 3 feet from you. She is torn to shreds and you're crying over a robot that can be fixed? Something isn't right about this kid. He's supposed to be the captive here, but he's the one putting everyone else in danger, I swear. In it for Recharge. What's the deal with airplane food and Glamrock Freddy and needing to recharge every 5 minutes, okay? Like, in the game sense, time isn't moving when I'm running around for 5 hours since I haven't actually progressed the story. So if this animatronic is supposed to need to recharge every hour only, why is this such an issue? And why does he only use power when we're actually piloting him like a mech? If this is the case, shouldn't this man also be losing power when we summon him to grab us from the 3rd basement floor? Like, why not? And why does he need to recharge but seemingly all the other animatronics don't? I never see Chica, Roxy, or Monty in a recharge station. Okay, even if you are around when they should be, when the hour hits. Okay, it's stupid, it's confusing, and it doesn't make any sense. It's almost like Freddy is doing this to us on purpose, either because he thinks that it's funny, or maybe he really is working for Vanny, but needs to gain our trust and make excuses for why he can't be around us all the time, so that he can just go and give her the information, or why he can't just why we can't hide inside of him all night, okay? There's something fishy going on with this animatronic, and I swear in the next game we're going to figure out that he betrayed us off screen. Or at least in the DLC we're gonna figure that out. Getting close to the end, and in number 3, the Afton ending. Okay, well, if you don't want to have the whole security breach game be a VHS, okay, how about the canon ending, or the Afton ending as some call it. The canon ending to this game is some of the most insane luck that Gregory experiences in his whole time at the Pizzaplex. This sort of thing is like catnip for these types of videos. I mean, when have you looked at one of these or watched a found footage thing and thought, wow, this is so unlucky? Never. okay? They always somehow end up having like lucky thing after lucky thing happen to them. So let's take us falling into the room and then fighting off these robots. Just make it a damn VHS tape. Since honestly, trying to do the whole of Security Breach may be a little more ambitious than most people could reasonably expect, but that's just kind of the person I am, though. I end up thinking of cool things after cool things, so then I add them to the project, and then it inevitably becomes too ambitious that now it seems like a mountain I have to climb, so I give up. But then I also don't want to make the mountain smaller because all of these things would be so cool and I've already thought about them and want to include them. So yeah, it's happened with literally every project that I've had in mind, and it sucks. So how about this one, we just cut it down to the Afton ending? Is that better for anyone who can actually animate and do it properly? I hope so. Penultimately, in at number 2, The Claw. Elizabeth Afton getting grabbed by Baby is one of the most terrifying moments in the series. Possibly because Crying Child might have seen it, which would explain the mouths on the nightmare animatronic stomachs. However, if we were to see a tape of this moment from Crying Child's perspective, whether that detail be canon or not, oh my freaking god, that would be so utterly terrifying that we may actually, like, I might actually freeze, okay? I don't know how to explain why a kid hiding in the bushes while his sister is grabbed by an animatronic claw while trying to get ice cream would be so shocking and horrible, except for how I just did it. But like, especially considering that this kid ends up turning into an absolute psychopath after this, and by that I mean Elizabeth, not Crying Child, but like, still, okay? The found footage that's like of someone hiding for some reason is always scarier than someone who's in the middle of the action, because I feel like it's, if you're hiding, you can point the camera at the scene, but if you're filming it and you're in the action, you're just filming your feet as you run away, because you know you're focused on running away, not filming it. Plus, like, in general, this is just a f***ed up thing to watch happen, be it in person or on video. And finally, in at number 1, Scoopening. Okay, now, I know that you may be mad and may think that this is a stupid point, but hear me out, okay? The scooper may seem like a weird but normal thing, at least by FNAF standards at first, but like with the blueprint revealing how this thing actually works, seeing this in third person from found footage would be absolutely atrocious. This thing can inject whatever it ends up scooping with Remnant, which is a molten metal possessed by souls, and it keeps a person alive after removing their insides, replacing it with robot parts, and then having those robot parts leave that body. In essence, just making that person a walking case of flesh. Do you really want to watch that happen from a security camera? Or even just watch it happen to someone else, okay? No. In Sister Location, we see it in first person, okay? All we see is just basically like a mighty machine digging into our body. But like, from the outside looking at Michael, we would see so much more. And if it's from Ennard's perspective, it would only be worse. In at 10, Moondrop Daycare. Moondrop Daycare is one of the scariest parts, but also one of the coolest parts of this entire game. While it may be one of the first things you do, feeling helpless in the dark, desperate to turn on the generators is something that this series is really good at. This section is also difficult if you don't know exactly where to go, and honestly, if I was to do this again, I still wouldn't really know what I was doing. I know where like 2 of the generators are, and that 4 out of 5 of them are on the right play structure, but other than that, I'm just running around willy-nilly trying to find it. It's certainly easier when you realize that Moondrop can't really get you when you're running around inside the play structure usually though, but it's also annoying that he can grab you from outside when you're inside the slides. But overall, still a great section. In at 9, Vanny Introduction. While Vanny might have been not as prominently featured as we would have wanted in this game, errors like that in this series' first free roam game are to be expected. But the actual introduction of the character, when she walks past you in the charging station, is definitely a cool way to introduce a character and instantly clue us into there being something more going on here than we realize, since our screen glitches out, and at the time we think that it's presumably because we're inside Freddy. And then when it comes back, Freddy has no idea what we're talking about when we ask who the hell that bunny lady was. He tells us that we're looking at a fountain and that there's no rabbits here anymore, referencing Bonnie. And then the Vanny conversation just kinda dies. And the next time we see her is when we're caught by Vanessa, when we have to escape the security office before Vanny can get to us. But either way, there could have been more of her, but the times they did use her, they did it well. In at 8, FNAF 1. Going the way that I did in the beginning, which was going towards the bottom bottom of the Pizzaplex through the vent in order to escape instead of going through L chips will end up putting you in a FNAF 1 style situation where you're in a security office that's made to look like what FNAF 1's office. The office will go on lockdown, giving it limited power, and your job is to watch the cameras on your watch so you can close the proper door when either Roxy or Monty is coming at it. But I think the coolest part of this is just that it's entirely a reference to FNAF 1. I mean, it's certainly more difficult than FNAF 1, having to run to the other side of the room in like a second if you want to be able to close the other door in time, but nevertheless, it's definitely one of the cooler Easter eggs or moments in Security Breach. Plus, I'm pretty sure the time you have to wait for Freddy to reboot it is the same amount of time that a night is in FNAF 1. And it's 7, Midnight Motorist. While the gameplay of Midnight Motorist itself is pretty simple, the intrigue comes from the hidden lore that we get from this game, all of which is fairly well known to my knowledge. I'm pretty sure everyone knows it, actually. You know how it's called later that night in the files, and the secret area at the bottom that leads to the whole other section with the Mustard Man and whatnot? Okay, good. Glad we're caught up. So, imagine that whole Mustard Man minigame section as a VHS tape. That would be pretty damn freaky, right? I mean, like, especially given the location and the fact that this is a house alone in a clearing in the woods, okay? Very Blair Witch Until Dawn kind of location there, alright? And even if you want to just use the gameplay of the minigame itself, that's still pretty terrifying. And you know what? Maybe even more so. I've said this multiple times, but the idea that anyone we pass on the street could have just walked away from a gruesome murder is something that is, I think, at least, is one of the scariest realities we all face. Like, I've made jokes like you're only alive because every human you've seen has chosen not to kill you, and in reality that has way more truth to it than you would think. And this VHS tape would be like any other. But considering how later that night is commonly seen as later in the night William killed Charlotte, I think the implications of it would be pretty horrifying. And at 6, Security Breach. All of it. Considering how there are cameras all over the Pizzaplex that we are able to tap into somehow using our Fazwatch, I think it's fairly safe to say that this would be a realistic idea. And honestly, I think all the Security Breach moments could work as a tape. I mean, like, come on, okay? Especially when Vanny distorts the camera around her and makes herself invisible to Freddy, okay? An invisible psycho bunny out for blood, chasing a kid around a giant Chuck E. Cheese mall for 6 hours? Tell me that doesn't already sound like a horror movie. Especially when you throw in like the low quality video that is associated with old security cameras and VHS tapes, okay? Slap on top of that some well-placed static at intense moments, and boom, you have yourself the next Paranormal Activity series. I just think that the concept of Security Breach as a whole would do well with this style of video. But if you want me to be more specific, give me a minute and I will be. Halfway through into number 5, Finding Springtrap. Now, this is a moment that we actually didn't get to see, but the guys who opened Fazbear's Fright in FNAF 3, they found Springtrap in that back room, right? So why not have a tape of them actually finding the body? That would be some freaky shit, man. Especially considering how we know exactly what happens because of this discovery. The pathetic fallacy of these guys not knowing what they've done, but everyone watching knowing what this leads to, already creates a pretty damn compelling feeling. But then throw in the horror and the fact that we know it's William Afton Hartley clinging to life because he's stuck here until the one you should not have killed decides to let him go, and it just gets worse. But they also think that it's an animatronic that somehow just still works. So yeah, definitely something that would be an insane tape. Add to that the fact that we haven't actually seen this before, and I think we all love it. And at 4, Security Puppet. Another minigame from FNAF 6 that I think would make an incredible video, Security Puppet. And I mean like the whole finding Charlotte dead outside in the rain thing, not the whole do nothing until the final round because the green bracelet is stuck outside thing, okay? Because genuinely seeing this from the puppet's POV with like the green bracelet being highlighted and maybe even the only thing that is actually in color on the screen would make this so much more impactful, okay? The pain that the viewer would feel as we slowly crawl out to her bleeding body would be insane. And imagining like the sound effects of like faint screaming or like crying from Henry that we could also have in the background that gets slightly louder as we crawl, I'm actually getting chills right now. It doesn't even need to actually look realistic. You could do this in Source Filmmaker, and as long as the atmosphere is right and you have the sounds right and whatnot, it would be absolutely horrifying. Okay, I would hear those screams as I'm falling asleep, and I'd probably never be able to sleep again. Just saying. Getting close to the end in number 3, true ending. The true ending of Security Breach is probably split between the best and worst moments, depending on the person. But in my opinion, it's both. While yes, this game does have its flaws, we talked about them in yesterday's video actually, the true ending still has some incredible moments. The cinematic instead of a simple comic strip is certainly a plus, and I'm sure that plenty of people loved the return of William Afton as Burn Trap, the first appearance of the character that is actually an animatronic. But for me, the highlight was just the sheer obscurity of the ending. How not everything is clear, and how the series can go in any direction now. Like how this next Spider-Man MCU trilogy can really go anywhere. And while that ending did break my heart, it set up the next 3 movies perfectly. That's what this ending does. It sets up the next part of the series amazingly. We can have William as the antagonist, or Vanny, or the Blob. We know that Gregory and William are together so they can move forward with the whole Michael crying child parallel, or move away from it. They can make these characters robots or actual kids. They can do whatever. And that's pretty cool. Penultimately in number 2, Phaser Blast. Actually getting to experience Phaser Blast was something I found incredibly rewarding. It's one of the things that I wanted the most out of this game, and luckily it happened. I was looking through the achievements for the game, and it seems like you can also, I guess, play golf in the Monty area, but I have yet to see anyone do it. But that achievement could also just be for finding all the secrets in the Monty golf area, I'm not sure. But playing laser tag in FNAF was probably one of the best moments in the entire series for me, especially given the pandemic and the fact that I haven't been able to play laser tag ever since I started wearing suits. So the fact that I was able to sort of play through it in FNAF was a highlight of 2021 for me. Plus FNAF vids do well on basically any channel. So absolutely a best Security Breach moment in my opinion. If you don't agree, oh well, that's fine, but it's my list. And finally in number 1, the best ending. The best ending for the game is obviously the best moment in the game, since it serves as the best outcome. The best ending is where we as Gregory are able to free Vanny by playing through the various Princess Quest games and beating Princess Quest 3, which is only available through the Vanny ending, which you get by playing Phaser Blast. But this time around, instead of pressing the button, you can end up playing Princess Quest 3, and by beating it, we unlock the room that we were sealed inside in Help Wanted, and free Vanessa from Afton's control, allowing us to go get ice cream with her and Glamrock Freddy's head, since at this point he had also been disassembled by Vanny. And 3 of the main characters sitting on a hill eating ice cream is probably the best ending we've ever gotten to a FNAF game, especially considering how in none of these endings does Freddy betray us, something which I thought was inevitable when the game was coming out. I thought that we were bound to be betrayed by Freddy, and that he would end up crushing us and that would be the end of the game. And while he can betray you if Afton ends up taking over him in the true ending, at least we know that it was never Freddy who actually does it. And even when he's just ahead, he still wants to hang out with his old pal Gregory, and for some reason Vanessa. Still don't get that.